There's a bill moving through California right now with the words consumer and protection sitting right there in its name, the Consumer Driving Data Protection Act. Read that out loud and it sounds like something built to shield you. Here's the part that stopped me cold. The people whose entire job is protecting consumers, the biggest consumer watchdog group in the state, are fighting to kill it. And the insurance companies, the ones who send you that bill every single month, they're for it. And the referee standing in the middle of all this, the California Department of Insurance, the office that exists for one reason, to keep insurers honest, it's against the bill too. So sit with that arrangement for a second. The House wants it. The customer's own advocates don't. The regulator doesn't either. When the casino and the players' union line up shoulder to shoulder against something stamped consumer protection, the label and the contents have stopped matching. And when a name is working that hard to reassure you before you've even read a word, that's usually the exact moment to slow down and read the word. This one is worth reading because it decides something California has quietly protected for almost 40 years, whether the company insuring your car gets to ride along and watch how you actually drive it. Now, if you keep your vehicles for a good long while, the way I do, don't click away telling yourself this is a California thing or a smartphone app thing for younger folks. It isn't. Give me a few minutes and I'll show you exactly where this reaches into your own driveway, whatever state you're parked in tonight. I'm Ellen. I've spent more years than I'll cop to reading the fine print on cars and the money wrapped around them so you don't have to, and my own car is 12 years old with no plans to replace it. Let me tell you what California actually is in this story, because it's genuinely strange and almost nobody bothers to explain it. For roughly 2 decades, California has been the one state, the single holdout, where your auto insurer legally could not care how you drive. Not couldn't in practice, couldn't by law. You could ride your brakes at every stop sign, log 40,000 freeway miles a year, take corners like you're late for your own wedding, and none of it moved your premium. Every other state in the country, plus Washington, D.C., has let insurers do some version of behavior tracking for the better part of 20 years. 49 states and a district on one side, California alone on the other. And the reason isn't an accident or an oversight. It's a wall somebody built on purpose. The wall is called Proposition 103. Voters passed it back in 1988. By a hair, 51% after auto and home insurance rates in the state had spiraled into something people couldn't afford. And Prop 103 did something unusual. It locked down the list of things an insurer is allowed to use to price your policy: your driving safety record, your annual miles, your years of experience behind the wheel. A short, defined menu, not a buffet. Here's the piece that matters. Because voters passed it directly, the legislature can't just rewrite it on a Tuesday. To change Prop 103, you need a 2/3 vote, and the change has to actually further the original purpose of the law. That is a tall, tall wall. And it's the entire reason the usage-based tracking programs that quietly went mainstream everywhere else never made it into California. That's the wall. Now, let me tell you about the bill that's trying to open a door in it. It's Assembly Bill 311. And before I go one step further into what it does, let me say something about your money, because this whole story is really a story about how the number on your renewal notice gets made. Most people think a premium is a decision. Somebody at the company looks at you and picks a number. It isn't. That number is the output of a formula. And that formula is a document filed with a regulator, sitting in a public database, with the reasoning attached. I got so deep into how that machinery actually works that I wrote it all down. It's a field manual called What the Record Actually Says About Your Car. And one whole chapter is just this: how nobody ever really raises your premium and where the paper trail lives that proves it. If this video makes you want to see the receipts for yourself, the book is linked down in the description. It's the map to everything I'm about to walk you through. All right, back to the bill. Assembly Bill 311 is written by an assembly member named Tina McKinner, and it is a clever piece of work. I mean that as a technical compliment, not a jab. It doesn't try to knock down the Prop 103 wall head-on, because head-on has failed for 38 years. Instead, it slips telematics into a term the original law never bothered to define: your driving safety record, and argues that letting a camera and sensor package establish that record is just a modern way of measuring the same old thing voters already approved. It's a side door, not a battering ram. And I want to be scrupulously fair here, because this is where a lazy version of this video would start yelling. The bill, as actually written, is not the surveillance nightmare the title of this video might have you bracing for. Let me read you what's really in it, because the guardrails are real and I'm not going to pretend they aren't. You have to opt in writing or with an electronic signature, an actual affirmative yes. The insurer can't just start watching. Second, once the company has used your driving data to assign you a rating, it has to delete that data. Third, even before that, it can't hold on to the data for longer than 6 months, full stop. Fourth, it cannot record audio or video of you, your passengers, or anyone standing near the car. Fifth, the data can only be used to price your private passenger auto insurance, not sold off for some other purpose, not repackaged for marketing. And if a company breaks these rules, the insurance commissioner can fine it. Read on paper, that's one of the more privacy-conscious versions of a telematics law I've seen. Genuinely, if every insurer followed every line of it exactly, this would be a pretty restrained little program. So why is the referee against it? Why is the state's own consumer watchdog writing letters to kill a bill that deletes your data in 6 months and asks your permission first? That's the real story. And it's got nothing to do with the paragraph you just heard me praise. Let me look at the receipts. On June 20th, a deputy insurance commissioner sent a letter to the chair of the state Senate's Insurance Committee laying out the department's objections. And the objections aren't, "This bill is too aggressive." They're structural. The department says the bill conflicts with Prop 103 the wall voters built. It says the bill opens up liability loopholes. It says it weakens the regulator's own oversight. And this is the one I'd underline twice. It says the bill lets insurers hand off a piece of the rate-setting job to unregulated third-party vendors. Sit with that last one, because it's the hinge of the whole thing. When you picture a telematics program, you probably picture your insurance company and your car, two parties, but that's not the shape of it. In the middle sits a technology vendor, the outfit that actually builds the app, collects the raw driving data, and runs it through a scoring model that spits out a number. A number that then helps set your price. And that scoring model, the thing deciding whether your Tuesday commute reads as safe or risky, is usually proprietary. A black box owned by a company you never signed up with, that you can't call, and that the regulator has a much harder time cracking open than it does an insurer's own rate filing. So the department's fear isn't that your data leaks. The bill guards against that reasonably well. The fear is quieter and, honestly, harder to see. It's that the actual judgment, the part where a piece of software decides what kind of driver you are, drifts into a place where the state's oversight doesn't fully reach. You'd still have a regulator, it just wouldn't have its hands all the way on the wheel. And that connects to the question I really want you to leave with, the one the operator of this whole fight can't quite make go away. How voluntary does voluntary stay? Because here's the thing about opt-in programs. On day one, opting in gets you a discount. Great, you're a careful driver, you say yes, you save a little money. But think about what happens to the people who say no. As more and more careful drivers opt in and get sorted into the proven safe bucket, who's left in the pool that didn't opt in? A group that, on average, starts to look riskier by default, not because they drove worse, but because the safe drivers walked out of the room. And a pool that looks riskier gets priced higher over time. So the person who quietly declined, who just wanted to keep their driving to themselves, can end up paying more not as a punishment anybody wrote into the law, but as a side effect of everybody else leaving. The bill's authors actually saw this coming. That's why there's a line in it saying an insurer can't condition a discount on joining the program unless the commissioner signs off. Read that clause again and notice what it admits. It admits the exact pressure exists. It's trying to regulate a squeeze that the drafters already knew would be there. Now, before anyone in the comments says, "I've gone full tinfoil hat," let me draw the line I always draw, because it matters. I am not telling you there's a plan to punish people who won't be watched. There's no evidence of a plan. There's no secret room, no coordinated scheme. What there is, and this is the honest version, is a set of incentives all leaning the same direction. Insurers want more precise pricing. Vendors want a market. Careful drivers want their discount. And once all those things exist together, the pool of people who opt out gets more expensive on its own, with nobody having to conspire to make it happen. Aligned incentives don't need a plan. They just need a door propped open. All right, I've spent a good while now on why the regulator's nervous. Let me stop and do the thing this channel refuses to skip, because if I only give you the worry, I'm doing the same cheap trick as everybody else. Let me give the other side its best shot. Its real best shot, not a straw man I can knock over. The strongest argument for this bill is simple, and it's got a real number behind it. Right now, in California, a genuinely careful driver, somebody who's never met a yellow light they'd run, is priced using blunt instruments. Your zip code, your credit-based insurance score, old violations from years back, a rough guess at your annual mileage. None of those are how you drive. They're proxies, stand-ins. And a lot of people reasonably resent being priced on where they live and what their credit looks like instead of on the actual careful way they handle 2 tons of steel. Telematics, the supporters say, replaces the guess with the truth. It lets a safe driver prove it and get rewarded instead of being lumped in with the neighborhood. And there's evidence real people save. Consumer Reports ran a survey of more than 40,000 policyholders, and the folks who used telematics saw a median savings of about $120 a year. That's a real study from a real independent outfit, and I'm going to say it plainly instead of burying it. For a lot of drivers, this works. The bill's author frames it as a safety measure, too, the idea being that people who know they're being scored drive a little more carefully, and fewer crashes helps everybody. That's why some of the bill's supporters aren't insurers at all. They're road safety coalitions, bicycle associations, people who'd like fewer cars blowing through crosswalks. That's not nothing, and it's not cynical. It's a coherent case. So that's the Steelmen, and I meant every word of it. Now, here's where I have to complicate it, because I owe you the full picture and not just the flattering half. That $120 figure is a median, which means half the people saved less than that. And when you break it down by age, which matters, because a lot of you watching are in the back half of your 50s and up the number shrinks, for drivers in the 60 to 69 range, the median savings was closer to $115. For folks 70 and older, it dropped to around $93. The big savings in that survey went to households with teenage drivers, not to careful 68-year-olds who've been accident-free since the Nixon administration. So if that's you, the headline discount is real, but it's aimed a little over your shoulder. And savings aren't guaranteed at all. In some of these programs, roughly 1 in 5 participants actually saw their rate go up, not down, because the tracking caught something the driver didn't think twice about. A hard break here, a late-night drive there. One state, Maryland, did a review of its own telematics market and found that most enrolled drivers didn't see savings at all. So sign up and save is true for some people and quietly false for others, and which one you'll be, you don't get to know until after you've handed over months of your driving. There's one more thing the advocates against this bill keep pointing at, and I'll give it to you straight because it's on the record. When people worry about where driving data ends up, they're not inventing a fear from thin air. California's own regulators recently went after a major automaker over selling driver data pulled from its connected car service, the kind of thing owners had no idea was happening. Now, to be fair to Assembly Bill 311, the bill specifically bans selling the telematics data it covers. That's a genuine protection. But the reason people don't take "we won't sell it" on faith anymore is that they've already watched "we won't sell it" turn out to be untrue somewhere else. Trust, once it's been spent, is expensive to earn back. So let me separate the confirmed from the open, cleanly, the way I always try to, because muddying those two is how you get lied to. What's confirmed? Assembly Bill 311 is real, it's moving, and as of right now, it's cleared the Assembly and a couple of Senate committees, and it's sitting in the Senate's Appropriations Committee. With a hearing set for August 3rd, it really would make California the last state to open its door to behavior-based insurance rating. Its privacy guardrails on paper, the consent, the deletion, the 6-month cap, the no audio, no video rule, those are really in the text. And the state's own insurance department really does oppose it in writing, dated June 20th. What's open? Whether that opt-in stays truly optional as the market reshapes around it, whether a third-party vendor's scoring black box gets the same scrutiny an insurer's rate filing does, whether the savings show up for a 65-year-old the way they show up in an ad, and whether the deletion promise holds up in practice the way it reads on the page, those aren't answered. Anybody who tells you they are is selling you something. Which brings me to the part I actually care about what you do with all this. Because a video that just leaves you uneasy has failed you, and I'm not in the business of failing you. Here's your homework, and it's the kind you can actually finish. First, if you want to watch this bill with your own eyes instead of taking mine, the number is Assembly Bill 311, and the full text and its live status are free at the California Legislature's site, leginfo.legislature.ca.gov. Type in the bill number, you'll see every version, every committee it's touched, and the next hearing date. That August 3rd hearing in the Appropriations Committee is the next real checkpoint. Bills change fast and get folded into other bills, so the site is the truth, and I'm just the tour guide. Second, and this one's for everybody, not just Californians, because your state figured this out years ago, and you might already be enrolled without quite remembering saying yes. Before you ever opt into a telematics program, ask the company 4 plain questions. What exactly are you measuring? Who actually builds and owns the scoring, you or an outside vendor? Can my rate go up based on this, or only down? And when do you delete the data? And how do I confirm it's gone? If a salesperson can't answer all 4 without checking with somebody, that's your answer. Third, picture the moment this actually arrives, because it won't feel like a headline. You're standing in your driveway, your phone buzzes. It's a note from your insurer, friendly, upbeat, a little green car icon. Enroll in our Safe Driver program and start saving today. One tap. And in that one tapped moment, with the sun on the hood of a car you've owned for years, you decide whether the company gets to ride along. That's where this whole enormous fight actually lands. Not in a committee room in Sacramento, on your phone, in your driveway, on an ordinary afternoon. So my read, and it's a read, I could be wrong about how this shakes out, is that Assembly Bill 311 isn't the villain some people want it to be. The guardrails are better than most. But the thing to watch was never this one bill. It's what optional becomes after the last state that said no finally says maybe. Because once your car being watched is the normal thing, the ordinary thing, the everybody's doing it thing quietly declining stops being free, that's not a prediction of a plot. It's just how a door works once it's open. You own the car. The open question this whole fight is really about is who gets to price the way you drive it. Keep your eyes on the number, keep your hands on your own data, and don't ever let anybody tell you a rate is a mystery. It's a document. Somebody wrote it down, and you're allowed to read it. If you want the whole map of how these numbers get made, the filings, the databases, the exact places, the reasoning lives, that's what the field manual in the description is for. Go read the record. It's more on your side than anybody's told you. This has been the Owner's Report.